My name is Jessica, and throughout my childhood, I got used to standing on the sidelines, watching others shine while I remained just a faint shadow. In my family, the spotlight was never mine. It always radiated around my sister Rachel, the one everyone called the star of the Moore family. From family gatherings to important holidays, all eyes were always on Rachel. Every time Grandma picked up the phone, her first question was always, "Is Rachel performing anywhere these days?" As for me, no one asked. No one remembered. Maybe I was never interesting enough for them to care. Rachel was born with the artist's spark. Her singing could silence a room, while my voice was always met with an awkward smile and a gentle, "Let Rachel sing, sweetheart," from my mom, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder before she turned away, leaving me alone by the old piano. She started ballet at 4, singing lessons at 6, and by 8 she was enrolled in an expensive summer acting program in New York. I learned to make my own breakfast at 7 and babysat my cousins during the holidays so my parents could focus on taking Rachel to her shows. I was never given a big role, just responsibilities, silence, and a spot in the kitchen corner. I never blamed Rachel. Honestly, I used to admire her so much I tried to imitate everything, how she tied her hair, how she bowed when stepping onto the living room stage. But no one clapped for me. No applause, just a few distracted glances and a half-hearted comment from Dad. "She's probably better suited for accounting." Once, I tucked a poem I wrote under my mom's pillow. A few days later, I saw the paper on a shelf, used as a coaster. No one said anything. Not a word, not a sign that anyone had read it. But I didn't cry. I learned to swallow my sadness, as if I were the family's secret jar, holding all the things they didn't want to remember. Of all the people, only Aunt Carol, my dad's younger sister, truly saw me. She would visit on Saturday afternoons with homemade oatmeal cookies and a warm smile. When she found me hiding in my room reading, she didn't call me out or ask why. She just sat next to me, silently flipping through her book, as if silence itself was a form of connection. "What are you reading, Jess?" she once asked, gently brushing the spine of my book. "About ancient Aztec cities?" I replied, eyes still fixed on the page. She nodded, her eyes sparkling with interest. "You have a rare curiosity. Don't let anyone make you think that's not valuable." I never told anyone, but Aunt Carol's words stayed with me for years. In a world that made me feel like I was never enough, her words were the only compass keeping me from getting lost. I know no one is meant to be in the background forever, but when you grow up in a house where only one person gets to shine, you start to believe that maybe the light was never meant for you. I used to wonder, if I disappeared, would anyone notice? But then I realized I didn't want pity. I just wanted a chance. One moment to be myself, without comparisons, without being pushed aside. I waited 18 years for that moment. And I didn't know when it would come, but I promised myself, when it does, I'll grab it with both hands. I won't let anyone bury me again. I entered my senior year of high school with a quiet fire burning inside me, a determination to prove that I deserved to be seen. While Rachel had left home the year before to attend a prestigious arts academy in Chicago, I poured everything I had into my books, group studies, and countless late nights under the soft yellow glow of my desk lamp. Teachers began to notice me. My essays were read aloud in class, my grades stayed among the highest, and at the end-of-year awards ceremony, my name was called as the top student of the entire grade, beating out hundreds of others. For the first time in my life, I heard applause just for me. I still remember the look in the principal's eyes as she handed me the certificate. Admiration, with not a hint of pity. That evening, I brought the certificate home, my heart racing. I pictured Mom hugging me tightly, Dad smiling with pride, that maybe just once they would truly see my worth. But the moment I stepped through the door, certificate still in hand, Mom spoke first. "Jessica, help me with the dishes. I'm on the phone with Rachel. She's got a performance next week at the City Arts Center." I froze. The certificate trembled slightly in my hand. I swallowed a sigh, then quietly took it to my room. The next morning, I gathered all my courage and sat down at the breakfast table, waiting for Dad to fold his newspaper and look up. I took a deep breath. "I want to study business management," I said, my voice strangely calm. "The state university has a great program, and I qualify. I've done the research. Tuition is about $18,000 a year." Silence fell over the table. Dad blinked at me, and Mom gently set her coffee cup down, her face showing clear surprise. Then suddenly, Dad burst into laughter, a laugh that was half teasing, half disbelief. "You want to be a manager? Rachel performs all over and still struggles to get by." "You think managers make money?" I pressed my lips together, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not doing it for the money. I want to learn, to grow, to live my own life." Then Mom spoke, gently but firmly. "Jessica, we already spent everything on Rachel. You know that. We can't support both of you." "But I'm valedictorian," I nearly shouted. "I did everything right. I didn't go out. Didn't ask for anything. I'm just asking for a chance." Dad slammed the newspaper down, his eyes cold. "This discussion is over. You'll work at Uncle Sam's grocery store after graduation. For now, that's it." I don't remember how I left the table. I just know that when I closed my bedroom door, the tears started falling, and I couldn't stop them. Not because I was rejected, but because I realized they never expected anything from me to begin with. I don't know how long I sat there frozen, until the phone rang. It was Aunt Carol. "Jess, are you okay?" Her voice was soft, but I could hear the concern. I didn't answer right away, but maybe my silence said enough. After a pause, she spoke again, even more gently. "I have some savings. Not much, but enough for your first year. After that, if you work part-time or get scholarships, you can continue." I was speechless. All my emotions broke loose. Aunt Carol didn't make grand promises. She just offered a beginning, a hand reaching out when I was about to fall. "But why would you do that?" I asked, my voice shaking. She smiled softly. "Because no one else in this family sees your worth, and I can't stand by and watch you give up on your dreams just because they're blind." I held the phone as if I were holding my own heart. That day, for the first time in years, I felt like I had a real chance to live a life not defined by someone else's shadow. I made a quiet vow to myself. If anyone still thought I didn't deserve it, I would prove them wrong, and I would start right here, on a path I carved out with my own strength, with the unconditional love of the one person who always saw me, Aunt Carol. I moved in with Aunt Carol just a week after that life-changing conversation. Her house sat in a peaceful Portland suburb with a lavender garden and an old swing creaking gently in the afternoon breeze. Unlike the cold house I used to live in, this place was always filled with sunlight and the scent of cinnamon tea she brewed every morning. She didn't say much, but just one look, one gentle pat on the shoulder was enough to calm my heart. I quickly applied to Oregon State University, majoring in business management. With an outstanding transcript and a heartfelt essay, I was not only accepted but also awarded a partial scholarship. Aunt Carol cried tears of joy when she received the email. "See? I told you. You just needed a chance," she smiled, pulling me into a hug. College years flew by like a whirlwind. I worked part-time at the library, attended seminars, and spent every summer interning at small businesses around the city. I learned how to stand on my own, from managing finances to writing resumes, interviewing, and building a professional network. There were times I was so exhausted I thought I'd collapse, but then I'd remember that night. The night I stood silently at the family dinner table, holding my forgotten valedictorian certificate, and I knew I couldn't stop. 4 years later, I graduated with honors. During the ceremony, as I stood on stage receiving my diploma, I didn't look for my parents in the crowd. I only saw Aunt Carol standing there, her eyes glowing like the June sun. "You did it, Jessica," she whispered as I hugged her tightly. "Now, go live your own life." Shortly after, I was hired as an assistant manager at a high-end restaurant chain called Willow and Ash, known for blending classic American flavors with modern European cuisine. I started in a small role, but I always volunteered for the tough tasks, took detailed notes, learned how to handle staffing, read financial reports, and patiently listened to customers. Within just 2 years, I was promoted to branch manager in downtown Seattle. It was a huge step, not just because of the salary, but because I had finally proven I could run an operation with over 50 employees. The day I signed the new contract, I sent my first message to my mother in years. "I just got promoted to manager at Willow and Ash. I'd love to invite you and Dad to dinner whenever you're free." Not long after, my mom called back. Her voice was still gentle like before, but this time there was hesitation. "Jessica, I heard you're working at a fancy restaurant. Your dad is very proud of you." Despite all the scars in my heart, I smiled. "I just want the family to know I'm doing okay. And if you need any help, I can pitch in a little." I started sending money each month so they could repair the leaking roof, replace the old fridge, and even cover medical bills when Dad had a minor back injury. I didn't do it to be loved. I just didn't want anyone to go without, the way I once did. After that, the atmosphere between us changed. At family gatherings, my mom would go on and on about Jessica, the talented daughter, managing a fancy restaurant, always busy but still thinking of family. The old phrases like, "You're not cut out for academics," or "Rachel is the real talent," were no longer mentioned. Instead, I heard things like, "My daughter works downtown. You have to book a table a week in advance." I can't say I felt nothing. Part of me wanted to ask, what about all those years before, when I stood alone in that cold house, and no one even asked if I was okay? But I stayed silent. I didn't need to say it. That silence reminded me just how far I'd come, on my own 2 feet. But just when I thought things had settled, something unexpected happened. Something I never saw coming. And this time, it didn't come from a stranger, but from the one person I thought was always on my side. One quiet Sunday afternoon, I was sitting on the balcony of my apartment, sipping mint tea and reviewing my weekly schedule. My phone buzzed, a Facebook notification. Aunt Carol had just posted a new video. I chuckled softly. Lately, she had gotten into posting little clips, her backyard garden, new recipes she'd tried, or family gatherings I rarely attended due to work. I tapped on the video, expecting something lighthearted. The screen showed a familiar scene, my mother's living room, filled with relatives, warm chandelier lights spilling across the wooden floor. I recognized Uncle Eric's voice, Dad's younger brother sharing an old story, followed by laughter. The mood seemed warm, relaxed. I was about to skip ahead when my mother's voice rang out, loud and clear. "Jessica? That girl is all about appearances." I froze. It felt like someone had gripped my throat. In the video, my mom sat with her legs crossed, wine glass in hand, eyes full of disdain. Whatever manager job she has, who even knows, always posting pictures of food, praising it like she cooked it herself. She's just someone else's employee, nothing to be proud of. My heart dropped. I hit pause. My hands shook. After a moment, I hit play again. This time it was Dad's voice, gruff but clear. "I think Rachel's the one with real talent. After all, she's an artist, has her own identity. Jessica just follows others. She hasn't done anything great." There was laughter from a few relatives, but what hurt me most came right after. The camera panned to Rachel, lounging on the sofa, one hand holding a glass of orange juice, the other brushing back her glossy curls. She said nothing, no defense, no objection, not even a hint of discomfort. I felt like I'd been pushed off a cliff, falling straight into the darkness of betrayal. The very people I thought had begun to value me, the ones I'd quietly supported financially for the past 3 years, were now sitting together, mocking me, for fun. I scrolled down to the comments. The first was from my mother. "Carol, delete this video now. No one gave you permission to post it. The second was from my father. Take this down. You're embarrassing the family. But it was Aunt Carol's reply that made me break down in tears. I don't know how to delete videos, and even if I did, I wouldn't. Jessica has done everything for this family, and all of you belittle and trample on her kindness. You should be ashamed. I set my phone down, sitting in silence as a gentle breeze passed over the roof. Inside me, a storm raged, a mix of heartbreak, disappointment, and a powerful awakening. That night, I called Aunt Carol. The moment I heard her say hello, I burst into tears. I saw the video, I choked out. I didn't think they were still like that. She sighed on the other end. Jessica, they've always been like that. You just didn't see it because you've always tried so hard to be accepted. But some people, no matter what you do, will never be satisfied. I thought they had changed, I whispered. No, they were just using your success. And the moment they can't benefit anymore, they turn their backs. I stayed quiet for a long time. Then finally I spoke, with a firmness I had never used when talking about my parents. Auntie, I'm cutting ties. I can't keep living in this illusion. They have the right to say whatever they want, but I have the right not to let them into my life anymore. On the other end, she didn't say much, just a quiet whisper. I'm always here, Jessica, no matter what you decide. I hung up, then replayed the video. Not to hurt myself again, but to remind myself of one thing, how far I had come, and why I could never go back to a place where I was treated like I didn't matter. I was no longer the girl standing by the wall silently watching her sister be praised. I was Jessica Moore, the one who wrote her own story. And starting today, I would live a life with no space for words that made me doubt myself. I woke up the next morning with a strange emptiness, like my heart had been cut out without a trace of blood. The Portland sky was gray, clouds drifting quietly past the window. I sat on my bed for a long time, staring at my phone. Dozens of missed calls and messages from my mom, my dad, Uncle Eric, and a few other relatives filling the screen. Not a single message from Rachel. I tapped the message icon and typed just one short line. I saw the video. I know what you think of me. From today on, I won't be sending money or keeping in contact. I hope you both live in peace. I hit send, my hand trembling slightly, but there was no hesitation in my heart. Just 5 minutes later, the first reply came in. It was from my mom. Jessica, don't overreact. We were just joking. Are you really going to hold a grudge over something so small? Next came a message from my dad. Do you have any idea how much we've sacrificed for you? And now that you're successful, you turn your back on your family? I stared at the screen for a long time, then turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I chose silence as my shield. That afternoon, I stopped by Aunt Carol's house. She was watering the yellow chrysanthemums on the porch when she saw me walk through the gate. I already know, she said softly before I could say a word. You did the right thing. I couldn't hold back. I hugged her like a child, letting the tears fall onto her frail but steady shoulder. I'm so tired, Auntie, I sobbed. I've done everything I could, and it's still not enough. She gently rubbed my back. It's not that you're not enough, Jessica. It's that they don't have enough heart to see that you are. The following week, I didn't visit home. I didn't answer any calls from family. I spent time with myself, working, reading, jogging in the mornings, and cooking with Aunt Carol on the weekends. A few relatives, like my cousin Amanda and Aunt Julie, quietly sent me messages. I saw the video. I'm really sorry, Jessica. You deserved better. Don't think we're all like them. I've always been proud of you. Those words lit a small, comforting fire inside me. I realized that family doesn't have to be those who share your blood. Family is where someone listens, protects, and respects you, even in silence. As for Rachel, she remained silent as always. We still crossed paths at the office since she was now working as an administrative assistant for one of Willow and Ash's partners. Our encounters were brief and formal. No accusations, no apologies. Just nods and small talk, as if nothing had happened. One afternoon after a meeting, Rachel approached me in the hallway. She hesitated before finally saying, "I didn't speak up for you that day, not because I agreed with them. I just didn't know what to do." I looked at her, and for the first time I saw Rachel's eyes without the old sparkle of confidence, only a vague sense of regret. "I didn't need you to defend me," I replied calmly. "I just hoped, once, you'd have the courage to stand up for the truth." Rachel nodded, giving a faint, sad smile. "I guess I'm still not that brave." I didn't blame her. Everyone has their limits, but I had already pushed past mine. I no longer wanted to live halfway, in the shadows of fake gratitude. The following month, I was invited to speak at a women's business leadership panel, representing Willow and Ash. In the grand auditorium, the lights beamed down on my face as I stepped onto the stage. I shared my journey, not to complain, but to emphasize that success doesn't always grow from a place of love. Sometimes it takes root in the dry soil of loneliness and pain. After the panel, people came up to shake my hand, ask for advice. I truly felt that I had stepped out of the shadow of my past, no longer that Moore girl named Jessica, but Jessica Moore, an independent, strong woman who knew her worth. But I didn't yet know that behind Rachel's silence and my mother's belated apologies lay another secret, one that would once again test the trust and resilience I thought I had fully forged. On an ordinary Monday morning, I walked into the office with my usual black coffee, laptop tucked under my arm, already mentally organizing my packed weekly schedule. But something felt different in the air that day. The admin smiled at me with an extra sparkle in her eyes, and Brian, the VP who rarely left his office, came knocking on my door himself. "Jessica, Mr. Randall wants to see you in the main conference room," he said, unable to hide his excitement. "Right now." My heart pounded in my chest. Mr. Randall Lawson, the founder and current CEO of Willow and Ash, and my longtime role model in the culinary management industry, rarely called anyone in unless it was serious. I straightened my blazer, took a deep breath, and stepped into the glass-walled room overlooking downtown Seattle. Mr. Randall stood by the window, his back turned. When he heard my footsteps, he turned around with his familiar, calm smile. "Jessica," he said warmly, "I've been following your journey these past 5 years. From an intern taking notes in meetings to becoming the best manager this company has ever had." I stood still, not daring to interrupt. He rested his hand on a chair, his expression serious. "I'll be retiring next spring. And I want you to take over as CEO." Time froze. "Sir, I really," I stammered. "I don't think I'm ready for something like that." Mr. Randall smiled. "No one ever thinks they're ready for something big, Jessica. But you don't need to prove anything to me anymore. You've proven it through every number, every decision, every crisis you've handled. The staff trusts you, our partners respect you, and so do I." I don't remember when I nodded, but when I walked out of that meeting, I felt like I was floating in a dream. A beautiful dream I never dared imagine. That one day, the girl who had always been pushed aside would become the leader of a top-tier restaurant chain. That night I called Aunt Carol. When I told her the news, she gasped, "Oh my goodness, Jessica, you did it." I broke down in tears, not from pressure or fear, but from relief. I no longer needed validation from my parents, no longer craved forced praise from my old family. All I needed was Aunt Carol's firm handshake, Mr. Randall's trusting eyes, and the years I had poured into a dream only I truly understood. This success wasn't luck. It was proof that I had chosen the right path. A few days later, I received a handwritten letter, rare in the age of emails and texts. It was from Rachel. "Jessica, I don't know where to begin. I've been silent for too long, and that's hurt you more than anything I could have said. I just read the article about your appointment as CEO. I'm happy for you. You deserve it more than anyone. I know there's a lot of hurt between us. But if someday you ever want to talk, I'm here. Not to explain, just to listen. Rachel. I folded the letter, a soft sadness washing over me. Maybe Rachel wasn't a bad person. Maybe she had just grown up in a world that made her forget fairness should be protected too. I've responded to her letter, not out of anger, but because I'm still learning how to forgive the right way, not to mend a broken family, but to free myself from unnecessary weight. A few weeks later, I officially took my seat in the CEO's office. From the 23rd floor window, I looked out over the glowing city, quietly grateful for everything that had happened, even the hurt, because those very wounds taught me how to rise, how to choose, and how never to let others define my worth. I am Jessica Moore, no longer a shadow, no longer someone on the sidelines, but a woman who writes her own story, with her own hands, strength, and the unconditional love she received from the one person who truly believed in her when the world turned away. Aunt Carol. Looking back, I understand now that not everyone will see your true value, and that's okay. I used to crave validation from the people closest to me, but I've learned that the most meaningful recognition comes from within, and from those who love you genuinely. I was once someone else's shadow, but now I walk in my own light. Success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about knowing you're worthy of everything you've earned. What do you think about Jessica's journey? Have you ever experienced feelings like hers? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and inspiring stories about family life. My name is Lisa Crawford, and I'm 38 years old. After nearly 2 decades of hard work in construction and real estate development, I finally reached the biggest dream of my life. A modern villa perched atop a hill on the west side of Santa Clara, overlooking the entire Valley of Lights at night. Every brick, every ceiling detail, every transparent glass panel on the south wall was the result of tireless effort, persistence, and an unrelenting drive. This house isn't just a place to live. It's proof that I've overcome every stereotype, every rumor, and every form of disrespect. The housewarming party was scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. I'd hired a professional event team, booked catering from my favorite French restaurant, and prepared every detail to welcome friends and colleagues. The people who had walked with me through this long, difficult journey. But when I returned home this morning to do one last check, I froze at the front door, the key still in my hand, not yet in the lock. From inside, I heard a familiar voice I didn't want to hear right now. My sister Rachel's voice. Don't you think this is the perfect place for a wedding? The mezzanine will be great for the stage, and the backyard is big enough for a reception tent. I walked in, a storm of confusion and anger building inside me. Rachel was standing in the main hall, where the walnut wood floors still smelled brand new, alongside a blonde woman I assumed was a wedding planner. They were animatedly discussing decorations with white orchids and warm lights, acting as if this place was theirs. Rachel? I called her name in a calm but firm voice. What are you doing here? Rachel turned, her face lit up like she'd just won the lottery. Oh, you're back. I thought Mom and Dad told you. They decided to give me this house as a wedding gift. Connor and I will start our family here. I stood frozen. Images flooded my mind. Me, surrounded by blueprints, countless sleepless nights adjusting technical specs, non-stop work just to secure enough funding. I had sacrificed personal time, ignored relationships, just to make this dream a reality. And now, Rachel, the youngest, pampered so much she's never held a stable job for more than 3 months, was casually claiming my dream like it was her birthright. This is my house, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I poured all my savings, effort, and time into building it. Rachel gave a soft, pitying smile, the same kind she'd used on me since high school. But you live alone. You don't need such a big house. Mom and Dad said you'd understand if you thought about the family, a little. As if on cue, my parents entered through the back door without knocking. My mom immediately approached the wedding planner, pointing out where to place the floral arch. My dad avoided my eyes. What is going on? I asked, my voice now sharp. Mom? Dad? Why is there a wedding being planned in my house? Lisa, my mom said in that sweet, manipulative tone I knew all too well. Rachel's getting married, and this house is just too big for a single person. You're always busy, barely home. We thought it made more sense for Rachel to live here. A wave of disbelief hit me so hard I had to lean on the stair railing. For a moment, I felt betrayed by my own blood, but then I clenched my fists, my eyes turning cold. I couldn't let them keep treating my accomplishments like a gift to be handed off. Not again. Everyone out of my house, now. Rachel's eyes widened, her mouth opening to protest, but my dad spoke first, his voice dropping into that patronizing tone he used when lecturing a stubborn child. Lisa, don't blow this out of proportion. This is for the good of the family. You're successful, you can build another house anytime, but Rachel is starting a new life. She needs a stable place to raise a family. I let out a dry laugh that echoed through the marble-floored foyer, the same marble I personally picked out in Italy and had shipped here. You're telling me that because I'm capable, I should sacrifice for someone who won't even try? Rachel stepped forward, her eyes full of fake confidence. You just don't get it. This is the first time I'm really serious. Connor and I are trying. Mom and Dad just want to help us start with a solid foundation. A solid foundation? I looked each of them in the eye. One you didn't even break a sweat for? The air grew heavy. My mom nervously tucked her hair behind her ear, a habit she had when she felt cornered. Lisa, you seem tired. Let's not argue. Anyway, your father handled the paperwork, right? Legally, it might still be flexible. I squinted. In that instant, it all clicked. This wasn't just a spontaneous overstep. It was a premeditated plan, cleverly disguised as a wedding gift. I didn't hesitate any longer. I walked over to the dining table, opened my laptop, and typed a few quick commands. Then I turned the screen toward them. Here's the full legal documentation. Construction contracts, city-issued building permits, invoices for materials, payments to contractors, all paid from my personal account. And most importantly, I opened a folder labeled Property Deed. Inside was a scanned copy of the ownership certificate, under the name Lisa M. Crawford. This villa legally belongs to me, and only me. There is no other name on it, not even our parents. Rachel's lips parted, her face pale. But Dad said, your dad, I looked at him, had nothing to do with the permit process. I dealt with the Department of Building and Safety myself. I submitted the paperwork, I waited for approval. I handled every contact personally. I even recorded contractor meetings. If needed, I can submit all of it in court. The silence in the room was suffocating. I stood tall, no longer wavering. I won't let anyone, family or not, take away the work of my lifetime just because they want a fancy wedding. Lisa, you can't do this, my mom choked out. You're destroying this family over a house. No, Mom, I said quietly. You're all destroying this family by treating me like an emotionless ATM. Without waiting for a response, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had saved long ago. Hi, Alex, it's Lisa. Please resend all the house contracts and deeds to my email. I want printed copies today. And while you're at it, call the security company. I want all the locks changed and surveillance installed before tomorrow night. My dad's face flushed, his voice now low and stern. You're crossing a line. A line? I turned back, my tone calm but firm. The line was crossed when you walked into my home and planned a wedding without even asking me. The line was crossed when I was treated as an obstacle because I don't have a family. I've been silent long enough. Rachel stepped back, clutching her dress. I thought... You thought I'd give in like every other time. I cut her off. You were wrong. I opened the large front door, the breeze carrying in the scent of the lavender I'd planted around the front yard. You have 10 minutes to leave. If not, I'll consider this trespassing and take appropriate action. They stood there, speechless. My mom began to cry, but this time, I felt nothing. My dad turned away, and Rachel glared at me like I was the traitor. Lisa, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't think you could be this heartless. I simply shrugged. I'm just protecting what's mine. If that bothers you, maybe it's time you learn to build something with your own two hands instead of waiting for someone else to hand it over. I closed the door after they walked out, my hands still slightly trembling. But this time, I didn't back down. This was my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone control it anymore. Less than 2 hours after I saw Rachel and my parents out, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages from Aunt Patty, then Uncle Mark, then even my cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in over 3 years, suddenly showed up, all carrying the same message. Family comes first, Lisa. Don't be so selfish. One person called me a walking refrigerator. Another texted, "You only have one sister." Houses can be rebuilt, but once family ties are broken, they can't be restored. I read every line, fully clear-headed. Not one of them asked why I had to do what I did. No one cared about the fact that I was the one who poured sweat, tears, and my youth into every brick of this house. I set the phone aside and poured myself a cup of peppermint tea. As the steam rose from the porcelain mug, I suddenly remembered when I was 14 and Rachel lost the bracelet our mom gave her, then blamed me for it. I was grounded for a week, while she was taken to buy a new bracelet 3 times more expensive. Today's incident was really just a repeat, bigger, more expensive, and this time, I wasn't staying silent. The phone rang. Rachel. I stared at the screen. I didn't answer, but just a few seconds later, a voicemail popped up. I hesitated, then hit play. Lisa, her voice laced with mockery. You should take a look in the mirror. You're jealous of me, always have been. I'm the one who's loved, who gets chosen as maid of honor, who's having the big wedding, and you? You've got an empty house and some papers no one cares about. That's not winning, Lisa. That's loneliness. I ended the message before it finished. Jealous? A word that had become a tired script in Rachel's playbook. To her, every time I objected to something, it was because I was jealous. Jealous that she was pampered. Jealous that someone always bailed her out. Jealous that she lived off others' kindness without ever paying a price. I went into my contacts and blocked Rachel's number, then Mom's, then Dad's. 3 taps. And suddenly, the world was eerily quiet. I just sat there, alone in the wide-open kitchen with its gleaming granite countertops, the afternoon light stretching through the glass doors. The silence felt like relief. No more questioning, no more demands. Just me and the home I fought to protect. I thought things had finally settled down. That is, until my inbox started filling up with emails from relatives across the country. One from my aunt, subject line in bold, "How could you ruin your sister's wedding like that?" Another from one of my mom's old friends, who even wrote, "Can't believe Lisa turned out to be so controlling. The family used to be so proud of you." I gave a dry laugh. Everyone had opinions, as long as they weren't the ones paying to lay the foundation. That night I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop, scrolling through every file in the villa project, from the very first sketches to every invoice for materials. I backed everything up to a separate hard drive, then sent a full copy to my lawyer, Alex. The very next morning, I called Alex. "Hi, Lisa, I read your email. Is something going on?" "I need to be ready for anything," I said firmly. "If they try to claim ownership of the house, I want to have every piece of legal proof and witness documentation, and I need to know, in the worst-case scenario, can I file a restraining order?" Alex paused for a few seconds, then said, "I'll get started. With everything you've provided, you have a very strong case." I nodded, feeling just a bit lighter. That afternoon, while reviewing design plans for a new project, the doorbell rang. On the security monitor appeared a familiar face. Rachel, holding a pristine white wedding dress, standing next to Connor, the fiancé I'd only met once. I didn't answer the door. Rachel rang the bell twice more, then started knocking, her expression shifting from hopeful to theatrical. I stayed seated, holding a cup of now cold tea. A notification popped up from the security system. Cloud backup of footage complete. I smiled. I didn't know what Rachel was planning next, but this time, I had more than just locked doors and concrete walls. I had evidence. I had the law, and most importantly, I had myself. A Lisa who no longer stayed quiet, and who would never let anyone else decide for her again. Just 3 days after the intense confrontation with Rachel and my parents, I received an email from the office of my attorney, Alex Parker, who'd been with me since the early days of the Villa project. The subject line was short and clear: restraining order approved. I opened the attachment and read every bolded line. The Santa Clara City Court had officially granted a restraining order against Rachel Crawford, Daniel Crawford, and Carol Crawford, prohibiting them from coming within 100 feet of any property owned by Lisa M. Crawford. Any breach would be considered a legal violation. I let out a deep breath, like lifting a heavy weight that had been sitting on my chest for weeks. This house, the home I had built with everything I had, was finally protected, the way it deserved. That afternoon, I requested the security company to finalize the surveillance system and integrate smart alerts into my phone. I even had a remote-controlled gate installed with facial recognition. No one outside my approved list could set foot here anymore. While the technicians were working, I got a call from Alex. Lisa, I've sent the official notice and restraining order copies to all 3 of them. I've also backed up all the emails and video footage from that confrontation. If they try anything, we have enough to take this to court. Thank you, Alex, I said, looking out the glass windows where the sunset spilled over the valley. I just want to live in the space I created, without having to be on guard around my own family. Trust me, Lisa. After reading that order, they'll be the ones watching their steps. The weekend arrived faster than I expected. The housewarming party I once thought would be canceled because of family drama had turned into a warm, heartfelt event. I invited only those who truly mattered. Colleagues who'd worked with me for over a decade, college friends who once shared cramped apartments with me, kind neighbors who helped watch the house when I was away, and the team of architects, the ones who helped turn my dream into reality. Sarah, my best friend since school, was the first to arrive, carrying a bright bouquet of yellow tulips. Lisa, this house looks even better than the renderings. I laughed. If it weren't for you, I would have given up during the permit stage. The mood quickly turned lively. People strolled through the rooms, the high-ceilinged oak living room, the open-concept kitchen with pristine white granite, the fully soundproofed office where I hoped to launch my next project. As I led everyone to the backyard, the sunset stretched over the infinity pool. String lights wrapped around the olive trees began to glow, twinkling in the evening breeze. One friend whispered, Lisa, looking at this house makes me want to apply for a change of address right now. I smiled, truly feeling like the owner of this place for the first time in weeks. But the biggest surprise came at the end of the party. While guests were enjoying macarons and wine, I received a message from Alex. Alert, Rachel spotted near the property. Camera recognition shows she's standing at the north corner of the street, not crossing the restraining boundary. I've contacted local police to log the incident. I didn't react outwardly, just quietly locked the back door via my phone and activated the secondary alert system. No one at the party noticed anything. I still raised my glass, still chatted, still smiled brightly. By midnight, most guests had left, and Sarah stayed to help me tidy up. She stood on the terrace, looking down at the valley glittering with lights. Rachel's mom called me yesterday, she said softly. She wants me to talk you into forgiving. Said the whole family is in chaos, Rachel's not eating, and you should be the bigger person. I looked at her, silent for a long moment before replying. You know what gave me the most peace today? What? That for the first time in my life, I threw a party without worrying someone would show up and ruin it. Sarah didn't say anything else. She just hugged me, quietly. That night, I sat alone in the reading room, the soft light casting a glow over the new design plans spread across the table. This villa was no longer just a symbol of personal achievement. It was the triumph of courage, of standing up for myself. One week after the housewarming party, I was in my office reviewing plans for a lakeside housing development when the doorbell rang. A notification from the security system appeared instantly on my phone. Visitor, Brandon Hayes. Appointment confirmed via email. I frowned. Brandon was Rachel's fiancé. We'd never had a real conversation, other than a brief handshake at their engagement party a few months ago, which my parents had forced me to attend. I went to the door. Brandon stood there in a neat gray suit, holding a thin folder. In the midday sun, his face had lost its usual confidence. His eyes were downcast, jaw tight, as if carrying something heavy. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced," he said, voice quiet and slightly hoarse, "but I didn't know who else to talk to." I stepped aside to let him in and led him to the living room. He sat across from me in the leather chair, placing the folder on the table like it was evidence in a courtroom. "Rachel told me this house was hers," he began, eyes avoiding mine. "She said it was a wedding gift from her parents, but it was under your name just for tax purposes." I gave a small smile. "So, she's using that story now." Brandon swallowed hard. "I believed her. She was very convincing. But after your housewarming party, when I saw your name engraved on the reading room wall, I started to question things." I stayed silent, letting him continue. "She got evasive when I asked about the paperwork, and recently I discovered she's using her parents' names to apply for a large bank loan. I tried checking our accounts and found a lot of strange transactions, money being withdrawn and sent to an account under a real estate company I've never heard of, Crawford Luxury Estates." I frowned. That name sounded suspiciously familiar. Brandon opened the folder and pulled out several printouts. "These are her recent social media posts. She's impersonating a real estate developer using images of your villa to promote herself." I took each page in hand. Every photo made my stomach twist. Rachel stood in front of my wrought iron gate, holding blueprints, smiling professionally as if she were the lead architect. Another showed the kitchen area, captioned, "A space designed by me, elegant, minimal, and perfect for the modern family." I sat up straight. "You said she used your parents' names to apply for loans. Do you have proof?" Brandon nodded, pulling out more documents. "These are copies of the credit applications. The signatures, I believe they're forged." I set the papers aside, trying to stay composed. "Have you confronted Rachel?" She denied everything, then accused me of being jealous, saying I didn't trust the person I was about to marry. "But Lisa, I think she's setting up something much bigger. Not just with me, but with your whole family, and her investors." I stood and walked to my personal file cabinet, retrieving a USB drive I had prepared beforehand. It contained all the legal documents, construction contracts, licenses, and original design files. Undeniable proof that I was the sole owner and principal designer of the villa. "I'll send these to my attorney," I said slowly. "We need to act before Rachel goes any further." Brandon nodded, the fatigue in his eyes replaced by a flicker of resolve. "Thank you for not brushing this off." After he left, I returned to my desk, opened my laptop, and sent an urgent email to Alex with all the new documents attached. In the body of the message, I wrote just one line. "She's not just lying to me. She's committing open fraud. We need to stop this immediately." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the reading room, staring out at the backyard where the soft lighting reflected off the water. This house used to represent freedom and success. Now it was a battleground. A place where I had to defend my dignity, my property, and my name against someone who used to be my own flesh and blood. Later that afternoon, just as I wrapped up a virtual meeting with my design team for the new project, my phone buzzed. A security system alert flashed across the screen. "Motion detected in main hall. Unauthorized entry." I frowned. The landscaping crew was scheduled for tomorrow morning. No one else had access today. I immediately opened the camera app on my phone, and my heart nearly stopped. Rachel. She was standing in my living room, holding an iPad, gesturing around the space while speaking. Surrounding her was a group of about 8 well-dressed individuals taking notes, likely investors or potential clients. As you can see, this is the first in a series of luxury villas being developed by my company, Crawford Luxury Estates, Rachel said, her voice shamelessly confident. I personally designed every detail of this villa. Early investors will receive exclusive incentives during the pre-sale phase. I almost dropped my phone. She was hosting an investment tour inside my house, impersonating the developer, designer, and even using my name for fraud. I didn't hesitate a second. I dialed 911. Santa Clara Police Department, how can I help you? There's an intruder in my home using my private property to solicit illegal investments. The address is 42 Hillside Drive, villa registered under Lisa Crawford. I have a court-approved restraining order and the entire event is being recorded on my security system. Less than 10 minutes later, I heard the sound of police sirens approaching. On my phone screen, Rachel was still rambling in front of the group, but when 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, she froze. Police, everyone remain where you are. Who is Rachel Crawford? Rachel turned, forcing a smile. Is there a problem? You're violating a restraining order, unlawfully using property you don't own, and are suspected of financial fraud. You need to come with us for questioning. No, this is a misunderstanding, Rachel shouted, her voice cracking. I was just giving a family tour of the project. But the guests, those potential investors, were already backing away, their expressions shifting from confused to outraged. One man asked loudly, "Wait, this isn't her house? She said she was the lead developer." I opened the front door at that moment, stepping in with a copy of the property deed in hand. "Apologies for the confusion," I said, my voice calm but laced with fury. "I'm Lisa Crawford, the sole legal owner of this home, and everything you've just heard was a lie." Rachel struggled in the officer's grasp, tears forming in her eyes. "What are you doing? In front of all these people?" "It's not me," I replied, staring her down. "It's the law." I turned to the group. "I urge you all to verify information before making any investments. She does not own a legitimate company, and she has no approved development projects. She is currently under investigation for impersonation, trespassing, and financial fraud." As the officers led Rachel out to their cruiser, I noticed neighbors watching from across the street, some on their porches, likely drawn by the sirens and flashing lights. I stepped back inside, shut the door, and exhaled deeply. At last, the truth was out. I thought everything would calm down after that incident, but just hours later, my mother called. "Lisa, have you lost your mind?" she shrieked. "You had your own sister arrested in front of everyone. Our family name is ruined." I paused a few seconds, then replied firmly, "I warned you. I won't let anyone exploit my hard work anymore, not even family." She choked up, then started crying. "You can't do this to your sister. She's just trying to build a future." "By stealing my house, impersonating me, and scamming investors?" I said bluntly. "If you defend her, you're choosing the wrong side." The call ended without a goodbye. I stared at the dimming screen, my chest hollow. That night, I sent all the evidence to Alex: security footage, social media posts, Brandon's statement, and the deed copy. In the message, I wrote, "We're moving forward with the lawsuit. Charges impersonation, trespassing, and financial fraud." 3 days after Rachel's arrest for the illegal investment tour at my villa, I was summoned to the Santa Clara Police Department to assist with the investigation. Detective Paul Ramsey, assigned to the case, met with me in a small conference room, a thick file and an open laptop with surveillance footage already laid out. "Lisa, I need you to stay calm for what you're about to hear," he said, voice slow and serious. "We believe Rachel's actions go far beyond just one fake tour. The investigation is uncovering a much larger-scale fraud operation." I clenched my hands under the table and nodded. "Based on banking data, security footage, testimony from her fiancé Brandon, and scammed investors, we've discovered that Rachel used your social security number, your professional credentials, including your real estate license and project experience, to fabricate a fake identity. She's been impersonating you for almost 8 months. My mouth fell open, but no words came out. Ramsey leaned forward. She posed as you in a series of emails to investors. These people thought they were communicating directly with Lisa Crawford, the successful developer in Santa Clara, and collectively wired over $2 million into an account under a fake company, Crawford Luxury Estates. I choked back a breath. $2 million? Unbelievable. Ramsey pulled out some bank statements, pointing at the transactions. These funds came from various states. She promised 20-30% returns within 6 months, presented luxury villa designs, which were actually photos of your home. I was breathing hard. What about my parents? Did they know? Detective Ramsey nodded slowly. We believe they were at least partially aware. Among the documents seized from Rachel's home, we found a series of loan applications, investment agreements, and signatures from Daniel and Carol Crawford. According to the bank, those signatures were used to guarantee a $750,000 loan for Rachel's fake company. It felt like ice water had been dumped over me. My throat went dry. My heart sank. You mean they're accomplices? We haven't made a final determination, Ramsey said. If they signed those documents believing the company was legitimate, they could be considered victims of Rachel's fraud. However, if they knowingly signed while aware Rachel was impersonating you, they could be charged as co-conspirators. I dropped my head, feeling the weight of everything collapse. The family I'd tried so hard to protect, despite their lack of support, was now possibly on the other side of truth and justice. We need you to confirm one thing, Ramsey said, more gently now. Did you ever authorize Rachel to use your name, personal information, or property for investment purposes? I looked him straight in the eye. Never. Not once. He nodded, as if he'd expected that answer. Thank you. That helps us greatly. We'll be expanding the investigation and referring the case to the county's Financial Crimes Division. Given the amount of fraud and false identity involved, Rachel could be facing several years in prison. And if your parents are proven complicit, they won't avoid legal responsibility either. I sat in silence long after the interview ended. As I reached my car, my phone lit up with dozens of unread messages. One was from my mother. You can't imagine the pressure your sister is under. She's panicking. Can't you drop the charges? Family is about forgiveness. I didn't respond. That evening, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and drafted a brief email to Alex, my attorney. Subject: urgent media support. Body: we need to prepare for public backlash. If necessary, I'm willing to issue a press statement. I don't want anyone else falling victim to Rachel. Let's strategize first thing tomorrow. I hit send, then stood to pour myself a glass of water. From the kitchen window, the city lights twinkled in the distance, still peaceful as if nothing had happened. But I knew this battle was far from over, and this time, I wasn't just protecting my villa. I was protecting my name, my reputation, and the life I had built with every ounce of my youth. 3 days after the meeting with police, I received a call from St. Luke's Hospital. On the other end, a nurse gently informed me that Rachel had been admitted to the emergency room after a severe abdominal pain and was currently in the maternity ward, 3 months pregnant. I froze. No one, not even Brandon, who had just broken off their engagement, had mentioned Rachel being pregnant. The news hit like a blow to the chest, not because I was worried about her, but because I knew my mother would use this as her final trump card. And sure enough, less than an hour later, my mother called. Lisa? Her voice trembled, different from before. Your sister, she's pregnant. She's not doing well. The doctor said her emotional state could affect the baby. I said nothing. You've already won, Lisa. You have the house, the career, the world on your side. What more do you need? Your sister has lost everything and now she's carrying a child. Do you really want to send her to jail right now? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. Mom, you just said Rachel has lost everything, but you forgot one thing. What she's trying to hold on to isn't life. It's a lie. And the baby? If you truly care about the child, then you should let justice take its course. No one can raise a child on stolen money and a fake identity. On the other end, my mother burst into tears. You're so cruel, Lisa. No, Mom. I'm just ending a long cycle of enabling, covering up, and unconditional forgiveness that only led to betrayal. I paused, my voice tightening slightly. Do you know how many loan papers you signed for Rachel? Do you know your name is now part of an open investigation? You're calling me cruel, but you're the one dragging this family down with blind trust. The call ended without a goodbye. The following week was a legal storm. Police officers, prosecutors, and even representatives from the defrauded investors gathered for the preliminary hearing. I was called as a key witness. Brandon also came forward, submitting all the emails, messages, loan documents, and most importantly, testifying that Rachel had personally asked him to pose as co-founder of the company to win investor trust. Throughout the investigation, Rachel refused to cooperate. She insisted everything was a misunderstanding between sisters and claimed she did it all to launch her own business. At one point, she even turned to her lawyer in tears, saying, "I was the hypocrite, trying to destroy my own sister out of jealousy over someone else's happiness." The judge was unmoved. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed, with press, victims, and those waiting for restitution. Rachel was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of the belly that now carried the child she had once tried to use as a get-out-of-jail card. I sat in the front row, back straight, eyes locked on the judge. Santa Clara County Court, the judge's voice rang out, after full review of evidence, witness testimony, and financial records, finds the defendant, Rachel Crawford, guilty of financial fraud, identity theft, and unlawful trespassing. Total damages exceed $2 million. The defendant is sentenced to 10 years in prison. The room went still for a moment. Rachel looked up, her eyes void of resistance. Only emptiness remained. Brandon sat behind me, head bowed in silence. It didn't end there. The judge proceeded to read the sentence for my parents. Because their signatures appeared on loan documents and they played a role in legitimizing some of the fund transfers, they were considered indirect accomplices. However, due to clean records and cooperation after the charges, they were granted 3 years probation and ordered to pay $150,000 in civil penalties. I felt no joy, no anger, only a strange lightness. That evening, when I stepped into the villa where it all began, I sat on the bench in the backyard, looking up at the starry sky. A soft breeze carried the scent of newly bloomed lavender. It felt like a chapter had finally closed. No noise, no celebration, just peace after the storm. My phone buzzed. A message from Alex. "Lisa, we got it all back. Congratulations." I typed back. Not everything, but at least this time, I did what was right. I set the phone on the wooden table and looked ahead. A new chapter was waiting to be written, this time with no shadows following, no blind expectations, no empty promises. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood on the villa's rooftop terrace, a glass of white wine in hand, looking down at the neatly trimmed garden below. Rows of vibrant purple lavender bloomed along the stone walkway, just as I'd once envisioned in my original design. Everything had changed. Not just the landscape, but who I was inside. The story of Rachel's fraud had made front pages of several local newspapers. At first, I feared the scandal would severely damage the reputation of my company, Crawford and Hartman Development. But to my surprise, the opposite happened. It was my transparency, strength, and decisiveness in defending my rights and bringing the truth to light that made clients and partners see me differently. Instead of pulling away, they reached out. New contracts poured in, from upscale lakeside housing projects to commercial art space hybrids I had only dared to dream of. The city council invited me to speak at a forum on sustainable planning, and the press began calling my villa a symbol of modern women's resilience in the construction industry. And I decided not to let that just be a passing compliment. I began hosting charity events at the very house that had once been at the center of the conflict. The first was for the New Ground Foundation, which supports women entrepreneurs in construction and architecture. Women like me, who once had no mentors and had to walk alone. I invited everyone who had stood by me during the darkest times, colleagues, friends, even Brandon, who, after everything, had chosen to speak up at the right moment and didn't look back. Sarah, my longtime best friend, stood by my side the entire night. After my short speech, she whispered, "You know what, Lisa? If you had given up back then, everything would have been different. But look at you now. You didn't just build a house. You built a monument." I smiled. Not a monument, just a new foundation for a life no one else gets to steer. The following month, I was invited to speak at the statewide urban development conference. I chose not to talk about success, but to tell the real story. About the times I was underestimated just for being a woman in the industry. About the family that tried to take away everything I had built. And about how I stood up. The speech ended with a long round of applause. A senior architecture student approached me afterward, her eyes shining. "You gave me hope that I too can overcome the expectations of family and society. Thank you." Her words made my eyes well up. Not because I'm someone special, but because I was once that girl. And now I'm living proof that you can stay true to your values without sacrificing your dignity to please others. One weekend afternoon, I sat in my reading room, reviewing the file for a plot of land in northern Santa Clara. A new project. Everlight Villas. A line of eco-friendly homes designed for single mothers, affordable yet held to the highest standards of design and functionality. Alex walked in, carrying a stack of documents. "The infrastructure board approved the first phase proposal," he said, setting the papers on the table. "I've never seen them agree so quickly." I nodded, eyes still on the map spread across the table. "I want this to be a fresh start for women who thought there was no place for them." He looked at me intently. "You know, Lisa, after everything, you've still kept your heart intact. Only now, it's stronger and no longer easy to push around." I laughed. "Because now I know where my boundaries are and what I'll never let anyone cross. Not even family." The room softened. Outside the window, the sky glowed orange with sunset. Rays filtered through the curtains, casting golden light across the new designs. Not just architectural plans, but a blueprint for the rest of my life. Clear, grounded, and without space for manipulation. One early autumn morning, before the sun had dried the dew on the front stone steps, I found a cream-colored envelope tucked inside my mailbox. No return address, just a familiar handwriting. Lisa Crawford. I stood still for a moment, a heavy feeling rising in my chest. I knew exactly who had written it. I took the envelope into the reading room, sat by the window where the early light poured in like a pale gold streak. The scent of warm chamomile tea lingered on the table. I opened the letter with my bare hands, not in a rush, but without hesitation. "Lisa, I don't know if I even deserve to call you sister anymore. But if there's anything left between us, even just a memory, I hope you'll read this to the end. I'm going to be a mom. It's a girl. The doctor says she's healthy. I felt her kick for the first time last week, and in that moment I cried like a child. Not from pain, but because, for the first time in my life, I wanted to do something right. I know no apology can erase what I did to you, to your home, to your name, and to the trust you once placed in this family. But I'm trying to change, little by little. In prison, every day is a confrontation with myself. No makeup, no pretense. I see the emptiness I've been living with for so long. You don't have to forgive me. But if one day my daughter asks about the first woman in our family who built a career from nothing, who had the courage to stand up for herself, I want to be able to tell her about you. Lisa Crawford. I hope you find peace. And if you can't forgive me, then at least believe that this time I truly want to be different. Rachel. I folded the letter slowly and placed it in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. where I keep things that don't belong in the present but can't quite be discarded either. I wasn't sure what I felt. Not anger, not forgiveness, not even sadness. Maybe just silence, like standing at the edge of a cliff. No fear, just emptiness. That evening, I walked through the backyard garden, my usual place for peace after a long day. Sarah called, inviting me on a weekend getaway to Monterey. I said yes. I figured I'd earned a break. Before bed, I opened my notebook, flipped to the first page of the Everlight Villas project, and added one more checkmark. Groundbreaking ceremony, next month. I looked at the line in fountain pen and smiled. Life goes on. There's still work to be done, homes waiting to be built. Not with money, but with trust. Trust in resilience, in justice, and in myself. I don't know if Rachel will ever truly change. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look at her without remembering everything that happened. But I know forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness means refusing to let the past imprison your present. And even though things between me and my family may never be called reconciliation, I no longer feel guilty for living life on my own terms. I've learned to let go of what I can't control so I can hold on to what I can build. Like this villa, it's no longer just a house. It's a reminder that there are things you fight to protect and moments when you must dare to say no to protect your light. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds outside my window. The sun was rising, gentle, steady, just like me now. I poured a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and began scheduling my upcoming presentations. On the screen, the new tagline I had added beneath my company's logo stood out clearly. Success is yours. Don't let anyone steal your light. And I knew I was living that truth. Every single day. From my own story, I've learned that sometimes the ones who hurt us most deeply are the ones closest to us. But from that same pain, I learned how to stand, to defend the values and results I've worked hard to build. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to keep moving forward without carrying someone else's weight. Success doesn't require anyone's approval. It only needs you to know who you are, what you're doing, and why. No one has the right to take away the light you created for yourself. What do you think about Lisa's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more powerful and inspiring stories about life and family.